You're stuck. You've got a project on your desk at church,
but you've run out of creative ideas. What do you do next?
Today, we're here to share our internal systems for never running out of creative ideas and show how you can do the same.
Let's dive in.
Well, hey there, and welcome to the Pro Church Tool Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. We call him the creative clergyman. It's Alexander Mills.
Hello.
I was on a trip to the East in the past couple of weeks, visited the great countries of New Zealand and also Singapore. And while I was on that trip, I was able to meet up with 8 different churches. Met up with 5 in New Zealand on the day that our skydiving was canceled for the 3rd time.
Wow, rude.
Put out a call on IG stories. Hey, who wants to hang? And we basically met up with 5 churches. We did dessert, we did dinner, we did kind of back to back to back in a coffee shop. It was great. And then in Singapore, had a similar experience, no skydiving cancellation, but put out an IGS. Hey, who wants to meet up? We got to meet up with 3 different churches. Some fine Singaporean folks took us out for some coffee.
Oh, very nice.
Took us out for some Singaporean chili crab.
Ah, there it is.
The first church that we met up with
Can we put the picture of you wearing a bib
yes,
up here?
You can put the picture up
YouTube
with
viewers?
the bib. Tristan and I tried to resist the bib, but after we had gone to a Taiwanese place the day before, and we had been served crab, and I was like, oh, this can be very messy. And they come by the table and they put like this little, square package in front of you. And you're like, oh, perfect. That's wet wipes. So you go through your entire meal, you're covered in goo, you open it up. Nope, it was gloves.
I was going to say there were gloves involved also in this photo.
Yes, so on the second time, I knew to put the gloves on ahead of time, and our hosts were kind enough to join us and wear the bibs. Now, someone did say, when they saw the photo, you look unnatural wearing the bibs. They look natural. I don't know what that means.
Same bib, but it can confirm that is true.
Anyway, why do I tell you these stories? The number one question that those 8 churches brought up was, how do you keep coming up with creative ideas in church? We talked about a lot of different things, and I'm always interested, like, what are the commonalities that churches are facing? We met with big churches, we met with small churches, everywhere in between. What are the common problems they're facing? And this was the one that was most frequently asked. And so we wanted to dedicate an episode to it, and basically I'll share my process for how I come up with recurring streams of creative ideas.
That's such a great insight to glean from churches that are not in the West. And like you said, very diverse in the sense of size and complexion, and to hear like this common thread of like this common pain point. It's valuable to hear, and I'm glad we're going to talk about it today, because for anyone who's present on the internet or responsible for creating content on the internet, I think we all kind of feel that pressure to constantly be creating. And there's an element to that of like maybe a bit of holy resistance in pushing back against like that pressure, but also like we're online to tell a story, and we create a lot of content in our church services, whether it be sermons or what have you. And so that pressure exists, and in some cases neutral, and we all feel it. It's kind of this universal thing, but especially being online, it's like everyone's kind of churning out more content than ever. The bar in some senses for quality of content is raising, and that pressure can feel a lot. And so we're going to speak to that today.
Yeah, and obviously as a church creative, you're probably in charge of a number of different outputs, whether that's graphic design or making a video testimony or a pre-service slide, whatever it might be. But even if we just look exclusively at social media, there's no upper limit in this era on how much content you can publish.
Right.
The bottom line is this, and we've seen this in reporting from Buffer. We covered this in a previous episode. The more you post, the more you reach, the more people hear the good news and are introduced to your church, with virtually no upper limit.
Yes.
No upper limit that a church could realistically touch. So what this means is, like, sometimes your effectiveness on a platform like social could be purely limited by your creative ideas and or the resources you have at your disposal.
Yeah.
So maybe you're not going to be able to work more hours or dedicate more of your overall schedule to social, as one example. You're not going to have more volunteers. You're not going to have more salary or more pay to hire more people. Okay, well, what can we do? We can make sure that our creative ideas are not the bottleneck to what we're publishing online. So first thing that I do is I emphasize to myself and to every one of you listening and watching that you probably need less creative variety than you think. So let's just eliminate this limiting belief from the offset. Hey, I need every single post to look unique. I need every single design to be a revamp, to be an overhaul, to be a reimagining of what's possible. No, in fact, if you go to my Instagram, perhaps there's the best example of this.
Yeah.
You will see the same carousel format reused over and over again. And we are now past 3 years.
I was just going to say, how long have you been doing that now?
3 years of using this.
It's literally a content, like a design template.
Yeah. And it's about as simple as you can get, too. If you look at it, you're not going to look at that and be like, wow, okay, I understand why they keep reusing that. It is literally color background.
Yes.
A color. One color. Choose one color.
Choose one.
And then text. Choose another color.
Yes.
Done.
Yeah.
And that is the stop the scroll hook grabbing design that we have been using for 3+ years. And guess what? Not only have we not seen any downward performance, but this has been like our best performing design because it's that consistent branding and familiar framework that's actually causing people to stop scrolling, because when they see it, they're like, oh yeah, I like this.
And it's the type of design that enables you to post multiple of those a week if you want.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so let's just start this off by, a lot of times churches are limiting their own creative output because they're like, I need to come up with something new every single time. No, subject matter can be reposted. Design formats can be reposted. Next up, I love to repurpose from other industries. That initial carousel design that you will now see in a lot of places in the church space was, I believe, initially seen on my like For You page or my discovery page, Explore tab in Instagram, from like another industry, probably related to like entrepreneurship or something, or like some type of recipe or fashion thing that, you know, something else that I follow just recreationally. And I thought, oh, wow, that really stopped my scroll. Let's bring that into the church world. And so let's say you need to come up with like a YouTube thumbnail. Typically what churches do is they'll go straight to YouTube and look up, okay, Elevation Church, Life Church, and see what other churches are doing. And I'm not here to despair on that idea overall. Nothing wrong with gaining inspiration from other churches and cataloging that. We're going to get to that here in a moment. But I like to look at other industries rather than simply recycle what's already happening in our industry. So maybe I'll go to like, oh, what are health and fitness podcasters doing in their YouTube thumbnails? And what could I glean from that? Because what's true is that these creative formats are agnostic. The subject matter is on cholesterol.
Totally.
Great. We have nothing to gain from that. But the creative formatting is going to be agnostic. And so what I can do is I can bring something from another industry that is foreign to mine, bring that into my niche, bring that into my world. And now I have this novel creative format simply because I've looked beyond my own world.
And it's valuable to acknowledge that each creative industry has kind of like this silo effect.
Yes.
If you're a church creative and your Instagram account, the Explore page for you is church creative stuff, as you could scroll pretty quickly and just see a lot of familiar design, which is fine. But if you were to go to a fragrance house website or a health and wellness website or a tech startup website, you'll see design elements that you don't see in the church space. But if you were to, you know, if your Instagram feed was to be all fragrance houses, they would share a lot of the similarities. Same with health and wellness, same likely with tech startups. And so it is a really valuable exercise to kind of dip your toes into other industries, whether it's through training your algorithm. Like for me, my Explore page is like mostly pizza content. And so, but you'll see a lot of commonalities in pizza content. And sometimes I will do this exact same thing. I will look at the pizza world and see, oh, like what's a creative expression that I could bring over into the church space, because there's not any overlap really creatively between those spaces. So it's a good exercise to do on YouTube or on Instagram, or go check out a fragrance website, or what was that website that we used to use in the early 2000s? Like Stumble Upon. You remember that? Or it was like just a random website generator?
Refresh.
Yeah, like just choose a random industry, maybe one you have no interest in, and explore kind of the best creative expressions of that industry. And you're sure to find an element that you can replay in your church creative context.
I think Alex keeps referencing fragrance houses because I put one extra spray on this morning. I'm just choking us all out in this studio.
Maybe subliminally, yeah.
The fact that Alex mentioned pizza content is illuminating for me, because that would never show up on my For You page. And so what's unique about this is that if we're just looking within the church space, okay, we're all going to go. I'm going to go to Transformation. I'm going to go to Elevation. I'm going to go to insert influential church here. And we're probably all going to go to some of the similar places. I don't have pizza content. Alex does. That's like a unique recreational hobby for him. And so what that means is he can bring novel creative ideas into his church, into our church world that are novel to him. Maybe I'm watching fragrance videos, or I'm watching fitness videos, or I'm watching San Francisco sadness videos.
Yikes.
And I'm seeing like content that's unique to that world, and they're all recycling each other, but it's unique. And so like, look at your hobbies. Don't feel like you have to go like, oh, I'm gonna look at the number one entrepreneurial podcast. Maybe there's something to gain there, absolutely. But like, what are your unique hobbies? Alex is into hunting as well. What is the hunting world on YouTube doing in their creative formatting?
Hey, that's a perfect example.
Perfect example.
Because we've tried content on the Pro Church Tools on the main channel that was inspired by something that I saw in the hunting world that you have never seen. It was a content format that I sent to you and said, hey, in this industry, this is the type of content that is really resonating right now. And we gleaned something from that. So that's a perfect example.
And this gets to the next item on our list, which is repeat the best, forget the rest, continue to test. One of our values for creativity, for social media, for any type of content creation, the continue to test stanza in that value, well, we perfectly we mentioned that there. There was this like casual talking head, rough style of video from the hunting world that we were like, oh, okay, how can we take this idea and express it in our own way in our world? And we tested with that video format, one that we had never tried before. That carousel format that today is one of our top performing creative formats was originally a continue to test. We had never published anything like that. And I thought, wow, I was compelled to stop scrolling when I saw this. I wonder if it'll carry over into our world. And then what happens is you can get the unvarnished feedback from social. What a huge benefit. Don't have to spend a ton of money on market research. Social media will just give you feedback as people vote with their time and attention, and you can see your top performers and your worst performers. And then you can try to identify the commonalities. We saw again and again that carousel creative format rose to the top. So then it went from a continue to test item to a repeat the best item in our repeat the best, forget the rest, continue to test value. And we've just continued going to that well again and again. One of the best ways to stay creative and to stay effective is to know what works and to continue hammering on what works. To go back to our original item, which was, hey, you don't need as much content variety as you think. I always like to use Dave Ramsey for this as an example. The man has been talking about the same things for 30 years.
In the same way.
And he's as influential as ever. Like for me, I remember listening to him for about 24 months and being like, all right, well, I got this. Like nothing else I need to gain from hearing him talk to someone and be like, Dave, like, I think a credit card would be good for me. And being like, no one should have a credit card ever. Next caller. Over and over and over again. Okay, so like this is what Dave Ramsey believes. And he just keeps hitting and hammering on that same thing over and over again. And so repeat the best also can mean reposting content that you have realized works well. Just this week, you can go to our carousel. And this is like an example of all these things coming together. I just came home from this trip. And when I come home, usually I've exhausted my like content vault and I have to start like building it up again. And so my content volume on social, it kind of dips for a brief little while. Now I know I don't miss a week, remember, no weeks off. But it might go from like, 3 to 5 posts a week to, oh, it's a week of 1 or 2. And what I'll often do, and have been doing even more, is taking a piece of content that I know is a guaranteed winner, a predictable high performer, and publishing it again. I talked with the church about this yesterday. They said, when you say like repost your winners, like what do you mean? I said,
literally repost.
I said I went to my Dropbox and I downloaded the slides. I went to the previous last year's post.
I copied the caption.
I copied the caption. I loaded it up and I pressed send. And guess what? Everyone was like, oh, this is a great post. This post is so good. And that's like a great way to continue to be effective and repeat the best. Repeat the same creative formats. Sure. Dial back into the same subject matter that you've seen perform well. Or republish winners exactly as they are.
And Dave Ramsey, he intersects my feeds every once in a while. I noticed, and you said it, he's been saying the same thing in the same way for a long time, yet because it works, it actually earns him new audiences, like an evergreen audience, right? Like there's folks hearing Dave Ramsey say this thing for the first time. And it's because he's repeating not just the content format, but the content itself. And so the same is true like for Brady Shearer on Instagram, right? You post literally the same post with the same caption, and it actually earns you an entire new audience. And that's thanks to the era of social that we're in. But it's not you're not just playing the hits to the same audience who reacted well to it last time. You're earning yourself an entirely new audience that's a discovery area of social that we're in right now.
This carries over to Sunday morning too. We know people come to church on average 2 out of every 5 Sundays. And look, I'm not sure exactly how far-reaching those consequences will have, but if you know the average person comes 40% of the time, what does that mean for how well they know the song that you are just exhausted of singing? How well are they familiar with an upcoming event that you've promoted every single week, but one, you're promoting an event, so people are probably not listening that much anyway, and they were only there 2 out of 5 Sundays. How does that translate to the same subject matter that you're hitting on in your sermons, right? We talk about church values and the importance of just repeating them over and over again from stage. Well, that's even more important if people are coming 40% of the time and not 100% of the time. Yeah. Why are you giggling?
I laughed when you said that because for any pastor or preacher who teaches from a lectionary, they'll know that the same scriptures will recycle about every 3 years or so. And so just last week, I preached on a gospel, on one of the parables of Jesus that I had preached on exactly 3 years earlier because we preach from a lectionary. And someone who is, I would categorize a super churcher. They come to church almost every week.
Okay.
They came up to me after that sermon. They said, I'm not sure I've ever heard that parable before. And I wanted to say to them was, you heard that here 3 years ago, and I almost preached it in the exact same way. I took the content from that sermon and borrowed a lot of it, brought it over, because I know that sermonizing is just not a very effective means of formation. So I have no hesitancy to to borrow, if I'm preaching from the same text, borrow something that I've said 2 or 3 years earlier. And it was such a kind of a humorous example of that, which is oh my gosh, I've never heard that before. It's no, you heard that here before. Yeah. And that's just we're inundated with so much content. It's easy to forget that I've seen this post from Brady on Instagram before. And so maybe when I see it a year later or 6 months later, it feels like fresh revelation, and that matters, right?
I had 6 calls with churches yesterday. I had 6 calls with churches the day before, 12 calls. If you're on a call with me, you're a customer, and you are likely someone who has been following our content for a long time. Virtually every one of these calls with a church includes at some point them going, by the way, love your stuff. I watch it all the time. Then I then say exactly what I say on this podcast every week. And they go, let me write that down. I'm like, no weeks off. They're like, whoa.
And that's to nobody's fault, right? No. That's just human nature.
And it's why I want to emphasize, if you take away anything from this episode, maybe it's just, okay, I can probably recycle things a little bit more.
Yes.
To the point of Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you've seen the Dave Ramsey meme that is very popular right now. The fact that he's so consistent in his responses has birthed a meme. There's a photo of Dave Ramsey, and we can put this on the screen, with his arms crossed, and he's on his radio show. So he has his headset on. You can tell he's listening to a caller, and he has his arms crossed. Yeah. And the idea is just okay, Dave keeps encountering the same people doing the same things.
No credit cards. Make sure you own your car.
Yeah. And then, so we've translated that to another world where people are talking to Dave Ramsey and they keep making the same types of mistakes, but not in the financial world. So the caller goes, so Dave, this is Dave. So the devil promised you a fiddle made of gold. That's right, Dave. But you had to wager your eternal soul. Yeah. In a fiddling contest. Correct. Against the devil.
That's how every one of his calls goes.
Yeah. I thought credit cards were going to be good for us, Dave. Okay, let's talk about repurposing sermon content, because as much as
we've never talked about this before.
As much as I harp on the church advantage, this was one of the things that came up in our conversation with one of the churches. I can't remember if it was in New Zealand or Singapore, where they were like, how do I come up with new ideas? And I said, you have hundreds of sermons that you can dive into. And what I told this person was, 5 to 10 years ago, the only way to realistically repurpose that content would have been a ton of manual labor. Listening through a sermon from 2.5 years ago and trying to identify okay, what can we repurpose here? Yeah. The wisdom of scripture is for all people for all time. And so everything in a sermon is evergreen if it can be repurposed. I said, now this is one of the best uses of ChatGPT, where we take source material and something that would have taken us 1, 2, or 3 hours of actual focused energy. We can put this into ChatGPT, say, okay, transcribe. Okay, great. If ChatGPT won't transcribe it, use some AI that'll transcribe it free. Then put the transcription into chat and say, okay, let's identify parts of this transcription that would make sense for social media posts. Or, hey, identify any time the speaker in this transcription tells a story. Identify any part of scriptural exposition, whatever it might be. Identify any part of this where there are strong scriptural applications in any one of these categories. And then you can like outline the categories. And maybe you run a sermon and you get nothing. So then run the next one and run the next one. And then what you can do, and I told this person, was you could literally go to your pastor and say, hey, you preached a sermon on this date, and in it, you talked about this. And I think that that is the perfect story or the perfect scriptural observation that would make sense as the lead-in to an event promotion about this thing, okay? And then what you can do is basically give them the transcription. You can say to chat, again, we're not using chat to come up with source material.
Yes, it's not generating anything.
Which is like rule number one of AI policy for churches. Okay, chat, we've identified this portion. Rewrite this in fewer than X amount of characters as a social media script. You can rewrite it. And then you can hand that to your pastor and be like, I want you to look into this camera and share this story. And at the end be like, and this is why we want you to sign up for Fall Festival this year. And I'm going to post that on social media. You have come up with a brand new creative idea using information that your pastor created, even if it was months or years ago. You then can go to them and get them on camera, and they're probably going to be pretty familiar with this one because you've already done the work for them, and the work was based on work they already did.
Yeah.
And so we think about this sermon content as, oh, I have this week's sermon from last Sunday. How can I repurpose it? No. Like in the same way that I have 10 years of social content, YouTube content, and podcasts, all of which can be mined to be recycled, your church has the exact same thing. And you're the only organization in the world that does it. There are two types of people, churches and content creators. Nobody else has it. I'm going to the dentist this afternoon. My dentist can't go, well, I'm going to just look through the messages I've been preparing for the past 10 years. No. All they can do is like share x-rays or something. That's what they have in their vault. And so finding new and novel ways to repurpose this content, and I think we are at the very beginning stages of this being possible. 24 months ago, not a thing. This is a brand new creative process that we can leverage and regain time. Something that it just wouldn't have been realistic because like it's hard enough to look through one sermon each week and turn that into social content. And when I say that, I mean your most recent sermon. To go back into the vault, I just don't have that kind of time. No, you don't need that time. Chat can do it for you.
Well, and you've just talked about maybe going back retroactively and doing that work. But now that you've said that, and to the social media managers that are listening, that's another antenna that you get to put up when you're going through your weekly sermons. You're going through your weekly sermons looking for 2, maybe 3 short clips to post to social media as these sermon shorts. But now you have this other antenna to put up and pay attention to, like you said, stories or scriptural applications that are going to be relevant to your events that are upcoming. So it's not just, you don't have to go back only retroactively, but now in your ongoing kind of evergreen process, that's just kind of another thing to put up and say, oh, Pastor shared this story. I don't want to share that to social this week, but we have this event coming up where that is going to be really applicable for some content that we can make for that, looking a little bit ahead.
And this gets to our final point, which is a vault of inspiration. The word vault is meant to convey the idea that you are adding to this thing. And when it's needed, you can open up that vault and dip into the reserves. And so let's say you added this one extra step each week to your content creation pipeline where you review an older sermon, just one a week. And you put it through, 5 different prompts. We just gave you a few different examples. And we're just exploring these creative ideas right now. You're probably listening to this and thinking, oh, I could ask this question as well. I could give it this prompt. Great. Let's say one of the questions you ask is, what stories are being told in this transcription? And you just ask chat to identify those for you. And within a second, it has given you like the 2 stories the pastor told. I would copy and paste those stories and put them inside of your vault of inspiration or put them inside of your story vault if you keep them separate.
And mark it. Story about peace or a story about whatever.
So then when you need to present an announcement or prepare a promotion and you're using the church announcements formula, which is 1 story plus 1 next step, you can look into your story vault and you are now not even coming up with your own stories. Because historically, when we've talked about story vaults or vault of inspiration, we have always talked about, okay, something happens to me in real life, I'm going to write that down as a story vault. So let's say you're not the pastor. Now what you can do is, pastor told this story a few years ago, but when he was younger, and you can like tell the story on behalf of pastor and then use that as the lead into the fall festival promotion. And now you're not using your own. It's a recycled story. It was a story that your pastor deemed useful enough to share in a sermon. And so you now have essentially implicit license to use it elsewhere from stage. You know, there are some stories where they would be weird if you told them yourself, but most stories that are told in the context of church are stories that if you told on behalf of someone else are perfectly accessible and not, you know, strange whatsoever. The point of the Vault of Inspiration is to start one right now. I told you if you take anything from this episode, let it be that you can have less variety in your overall content. Maybe on equal terms or 1A and 1B is start your inspiration vault now. Anytime you see something that you think, oh, that looks cool, save it. You never know when you might need it. And the biggest way to protect yourself from a lack of creative inspiration down the road is to build up reserves for when you need it. We do this financially, right?
Totally. Yeah, you pave the runway, like infinite runway for achieving the no weeks off, right? Because the rainy day will come, right? That week leading up to Christmas or after Easter or like something, you know, like or someone gets unexpectedly sick or someone's on vacation, like that slack week is going to come. And having this vault of inspiration, and in some cases like actual content, not just inspiration, but like actually fully fleshed content that's just like ready to go. I don't know. I sleep better at night knowing that I have a vault of inspiration.
So to recap, number 1, you need less variety than you think. Number 2, repurpose from other industries. Number 3, repeat the best, forget the rest, continue to test. Number 4, repurpose sermon content. And number 5, build your vault of inspiration, of stories, so that when you need them, you've got plenty. Thanks as always for your time, attention, and trust. We will talk to you next Wednesday.
My apologies, Owen, for not showing you the gray card last week.
I know. You were very magenta compared to me. I keep looking like I'm hunching. Huncho.
The whole show or the...
Just these intros. I come, I'm like, hi.